evening, everybody. Welcome to the ranch. I'm Tim Carothers, owner of Tim Carothers Horsemanship and the Cut It Out Ranch. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Gracie and Pedro Torres for including me in this. It's an honor and a privilege. A little bit about myself. I was born here in the state of Kentucky and grew up on a small cattle farm. I was not born into this. My dad wasn't necessarily a horseman, but I was very blessed as a child that I was allowed to have horses. I don't remember a time in my life that I ever wanted to be anything other than a cowboy, and even before I knew what that actually meant. Shortly after high school, I was able to make that dream come true. I ended up in Northern California, right there on the coast, and I went to work for an outfit up there. It took in about 50,000 acres, and we run 3,500 mama cows, and I was horseback every day. And I'm confident I was probably at that time the sorriest hand they ever hired. But I had a lot of try, I had a lot of want to, a lot of grit, a lot of determination. The one thing that I did have going for me was at least I was smart enough to know a good hand when I seen one. And I tried to friend them guys as much as I could and learn as much as I could from them. And you know, that's only been 30, 35 years ago, and there wasn't a lot of guys even then. They was pretty tight-lipped, you know, especially the new kid on the block. Now it's pretty enjoyable. We're all exchanging information on the internet and YouTube and clinics. And well, while I was up there, I did have the honor of meeting a gentleman by the name of Ray Hunt. Ray come to our local town up there a couple times a year, and I don't even know if anybody knew what a clinic was back then. You know, most of the talk was well, Ray's coming to town. But what I did notice is I thought I was getting along with my horses pretty good, and Ray came to town, and I seen that man do things that I had no idea that you could get done, especially in such a short amount of time. And I guess that was the turning point for what I wanted out of my horses. You know, up until then, I thought it was all about me, and my horse was just supposed to play along and take it. I learned then that none of this is worth nothing if there ain't something in it for the horse. I came back to Kentucky about 5 years later, and I went to riding horses for the public and had quite a few cow gigs at the time, and word got around, and I went to catching a lot of cattle, and I've been very blessed that most of my adult life, most of my living has been made horseback or involving the horse in some way or another.
Mr. Carothers, what kind of horseman do you classify yourself?
You know, that's a great question. And we're all very familiar with the two major traditions, I guess you'd say. The Northwest guys, the Southwest guys, and there's a lot of differences there in a way, as far as their gear and the way they dressed, and maybe even the way their hat shaped. But I just want to be, if I could be known as anything, it would be two things. One, I'd like to be known as a good horseman, and above all, I'd just like to be known as a good hand. I was very blessed to experience both of those traditions, you know, in the Northwest and Southwest both, and I try to combine those things. So meshing those two traditions together have pretty much made up my horsemanship program.
And how does your background influence your style and methods?
Well, again, because I was very honored and very blessed in my background. You know, I started out in that Northwest country, and things are different up there. You know, the big loop, long rope, slick horn. Most of the time, you're a little bit more open country. You get blessed you got the benefit of a crew. Got out in that brush country, even though they got big crews there too, you find yourself working alone quite a bit. And I still find myself working alone quite a bit. So again, I've took the very best of both those worlds, and I've spent hours and hours and time learning to the best of my ability both of those traditions. And the country will decide. Buster McLaury, I believe, is the one that brought light to that. You know, the country kind of makes the hand, and in this country here where I live, in a lot of ways, that Southwest tradition suits a little better. But again, my ultimate goal is, as long as there's something in it for the horse, that's what it's all about.
Mr. Carothers, in your own words, describe horsemanship.
Horsemanship, pretty simple. To me, it's I don't take no relationship lightly, and it's no different than any other relationship. It has to be a partnership. It cannot be a dictatorship. Everything can't just be my idea. That horse has to be a willing partner. He's my friend. He helps me make my living. No different than any other friend. When that horse sees me enter that field or that pasture, and I want him kind of hunting me up. I want him kind of be glad to see me, not just because I got a couple carrots in my back pocket or I'm packing a feed scoop.
Mr. Carothers, at what age do you typically like to start your horses?
I typically like to start my horses at 2 years of age, for the main reason. Even if I just, get the basic groundwork done on them and put a couple rides on them and kick them back out and let them grow a little bit and mature a little more, that's fine. But I like to lay, if at all possible, I like to lay that initial foundation as a 2-year-old, because I found through the years that the mindset of a 3-year-old sometimes versus a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old versus a 2-year-old, that mindset of that older horse, they get a little more independent. Sometimes they're a little bit more headstrong than them 2-year-old colts.
What are some exercises you feel your horses should be comfortable with prior to riding?
I like to familiarize my horses through my groundwork with about everything that I can. I don't hide my horses for much. I don't believe in overexposing a young horse either, but I get my groundwork very thorough. And again, I have to sense that willingness from that horse. In my groundwork, I ought to be able to send him around me, send him both ways, very little resistance. The horse is kind of searching, wanting to know what I might be asking of him next. I want him to be willing to give me that. If I pick up on that lead rope, I don't want it to be no different than I'm going to someday want that rein to feel like, I'd like a willing response.
Mr. Carothers, what should a horse with 30 days of training ride like?
That is a very good question. And again, I don't spend a lot of time hanging shingles out. I still start a lot of colts, ride a lot of horses for the public, but I don't ever want to be known as a 30-day wonder. It seems like every time you involve that almighty dollar, people, they want a whole lot happening now, and they have no regard. And I don't mean this to hurt anybody's feelings or step on anybody's toes, but a lot of them 30-day colts, anytime the human interacts with a horse, you're teaching him something. It may be teaching him what not to do, but a lot of times you'll get them colts in, and for 2 years of their life, they've been allowed to walk all over you and step on you or drag you around or not be caught or not want to be caught, and it's really not fair. It's not fair to that horse trainer to expect him, to start with that, and at the end of 30 days, some of these people think they're ready to go to a horse show. But to answer that question, I think that at the end of 30 days, if a colt is responsive and he'll stand and allow you to get on, get off, he'll walk, trot, canter, stop, back up, and with all those things, he does it willingly. I think that's about all anybody could expect out of a 30-day colt.
Mr. Carothers, what are your tack and accessories of choice and why? Saddle pad, headstall, reins, etc.
I still prefer my swell fork saddles. About everything that I ride is on an association style tree. I like my saddles double rigged. Again, this part of the country, that just kind of suits. A full double rig, this saddle here I think is rigged on a 7/8 flat plate rigging. A full double rig probably wouldn't work out. Well, it didn't. I tried it. In that northwest country, you're up there in them grassy hill slopes, horses will pull at a pull a lot of the time, and you'll soar one up if you ain't careful. My horn, I still wrap in mule hide. I dally and tie on both. You can slip a little rope there with that mule hide. bridles. I typically start my horses groundwork in a halter. I'll go to the snaffle bit. I still prefer a split rein. I'm pretty picky about how my split reins are cut though. I like a rein that has some feel to it. A little bit of heft maybe. It just suits this part of the country a little bit better. As far as my pads go, I'm pretty partial to them felt pads. As far as cinches, I don't think we'll ever come up with a better invention than a good mohair cinch, in my opinion.
Mr. Carothers, what is the benefit of using horses to work cattle, and what is the benefit of using cattle to work horses?
That's a great question. A great question. Horses to work cattle. I've worked in the feedlot quite a bit. We'll never replace, with all the technology we have today, I don't believe we'll ever replace a working cowboy horseback. Several reasons. One, you got to be able to get from point A to point B, sometimes that quick. When that cow shuts down, you need to be able to shut down with him most of the time. That cow makes a maneuver, you need something that can maneuver. There's no four-wheeler, ATV, feed bucket, anything ever been invented. Another great asset to being horseback through cattle, and I've actually experienced this, and I'm sure some of y'all have too. You can have a couple guys afoot going through a sick pen, and they'll miss a lot of cattle. They just don't have that view. And a cattle will respect a man horseback a lot more than he will a man on the ground for several different reasons. I think a cow knows a horse's ability, and I also think that something above them, something above them, I think they have a lot more respect for. As far as building confidence in a horse, there's nothing better that I can think of that'll help build confidence in a young horse especially. So as far as cow work, catching cattle, pinning cattle, doctoring cattle, spotting sick cattle, the horse will never they'll never come up with a better invention. As far as helping me train my horses, it gives that horse something to focus on. It gives that horse a job. And pretty soon that horse will figure out, in any partnership, that you got two players in there. So that horse will soon figure out that you and him are doing that job together.
Mr. Carothers, how would you describe your style of roping, and how do you benefit from it?
Again, I was very blessed that I had the opportunity to work at Northwest Country, and I spent a lot of hours and time learning that Northwest traditional style of roping too, and then the Southwest. And as a kid, I done quite a bit of ringer roping, tie down calf roping, team roping both, and so there's a time and a place for everything. But because I have put those two things together, typically on my daily, everyday deal, you'll probably catch me packing 35, 40 foot of rope, and I can get a lot done with that. And there are times too, and again, this goes back to that Southwest tradition, and a lot of people, they get scared of this thing. You'll see that I got a horn knot clipped on the end of that rope right there. I tell people the biggest difference, really, you take a hard and fast guy versus a dally guy. The dally guy, he still ties off before he gets off. I'm just already tied on before I get my critter caught. But this thing really ain't that scary, but it does require a little bit different style of horse. I got to be a little bit more aware, tied off, that I'm riding something that if I ask him to step up, he's going to step up now. Man got in the bind tied on there. If I was sitting on this saddle, I could demonstrate this a little bit better, but if you'll notice, that rope's got a little bit of a tail on it. If I got in the bind and that horse just moved his feet, give me 6 inches of slack, I can pull that tail right there, and that thing will pop off there pretty quick, and I can get free from it. So I combine, take the best of both traditions and use them wherever, whenever needed.
Mr. Carothers, what advice would you give someone who is about to start roping?
My advice that I'd give somebody that's about to start roping would be the same as I'd give the advice somebody wanting to start barrel racing, cutting, and showing Western pleasure. Don't ever, ever, ever quit trying to improve your horsemanship. In everything you do, and I encourage this in my horsemanship clinics, I'm the kind of person, I challenge myself every day. And I like to see other people challenge yourself every day. Challenge your horses every day. It's no different than raising kids, you know. Just because a kid's in the 2nd grade doesn't mean you can't learn 5th grade math. So anybody that's wanting to get started roping, don't be prejudiced. Don't turn your back just because a guy packing a little bit different rope than what you think you ought to be. Go to that Saturday night jackpot. You'll learn something off everybody. If nothing else, you'll learn again what not to do. But a good hand's a good hand. It doesn't matter if he's in the team roping pen on Saturday night or if he's in 2,000 acre pasture, catching bulls. Learn your fundamentals. Fundamental roping is fundamental roping. One thing that I see, at least for the way that I'm equipped to learn, you know, a lot of these guys teaching some of these other styles of roping, they don't talk a lot about delivery. Stick to your fundamentals, but when you're starting to learn some of them other shots, you know, get real familiar with how to deliver that loop and put it where it needs to be. The other thing is practice, 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 practice. Don't ever give up, and just work at it.
That's the last question. Wrap it up.
Well, again, I'd like to give special thanks to Gracie and Pedro Torres for including me in this. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I hope to see y'all sometime soon at a clinic, or maybe we'll run into each other in town. But thanks again for having me.